Hello, you're here with T.
And Matthew.
And we are the Bing Zang Zoom podcast. So, it is Bing Zang Zoom 12. What we got? That's right.
What happened
12.
to 11?
11 happened. 11 was the...
And I wasn't invited?
Well, you were invited, but the time frame didn't work out. But...
No, we had a guest on, so...
Yeah. All good. All right, so, what we got?
Oh, we've got so much stuff that I'm not sure where to bounce around on this list.
Yeah.
Let's start with this one. So the latest Black Widow trailer came out, and there's always this juggernaut, pun intended, of the Marvel movies. Whenever there's a trailer that comes out, everybody wants to watch it. Everybody loves it. This one's had a bit of a backlash. And not like this huge, like everybody's offended by it or anything, but enough that it's been a little odd.
Yeah.
So, have you seen any of the trailers for Black Widow?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know who the villain's going to be of this movie?
What was it? I don't know who. No, I don't know. I don't know who the person is in the comics. No.
So it's Taskmaster. Now there's some rumors that there's going to be a mix-up and that it's not actually going to be Taskmaster. That's going to be somebody impersonating him or whatever. But in the comics, Taskmaster's whole thing is that he can imitate people. If he sees somebody do a movement, he can copy that movement exactly. Right. And so apparently there's a few shots in the trailers where he does a movement that looks similar to an Iron Man movement from an old movie, or does the Wakanda hands or something. And so there's been all these things of people posting memes and posting comments about like, well, this is stupid. Marvel's clearly run out of ideas because they're having their villain copy their heroes from previous movies. It's like, that's the point of Taskmaster.
It seems like that's... I don't know. Maybe it's just Marvel fans. Some Marvel fans are not as well read with the comic books, and maybe they don't understand the villain that much. And
that's fine. But if you're gonna take the time to make a meme or to write a comment about it, why not just Google who the villain is?
Do your Googles, okay? Shout out to Fredro Star.
But, if we've all said things online, that's like we looked at and then later on looked up and be like, oh, I was wrong about that. Yeah. But it's just funny, this sort of immediate reaction of, oh, well, they're running out of ideas. They're copying themselves. It's like...
Even so, like, we're still going to get it. We're still going to buy it. See, really quick, on a different note, somebody was talking to me recently about Ben Affleck playing Batman and stuff. Right. And I was like, look, I know Ben Affleck is playing Batman, and I knew
not anymore,
but during the Justice League movie. Right. And I'm like, yeah, I know he's playing Batman, and I'm like, I'm still going to go spend the money to see the movie, whether I like how it comes out or not. I need to know for myself. So, unfortunately, they got me. But it is what it is. I mean, you're probably still going to go see it. So, what is it? Is it the commiseration, something like that? Marvel. What does that do?
Any publications good? I can't say that word today. Any
publication?
Yeah, I don't know. When you're being talked about, it's always helpful.
Right? Yeah, that's true.
Any publicity.
Yeah.
Any publicity is good publicity. Speaking of, since you brought that one up, let's jump all the way down the list over here and talk about the Batmobile, since you were talking about Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
So they released a few pictures of the Robert Pattinson Batmobile. What'd you think of that?
So as I'm saying all the that's me when it comes to this Batmobile. This Batmobile looks like somebody took like a Tyco toy and just, or maybe even like an old car, not even, Hot Wheel, that's what I meant to say. A Hot Wheel, like one of the, painted black, and it's like, that's the Batmobile. Mind you, just a little reminder, Batman / Bruce Wayne is rich. Yeah. He has plenty of money. This is what he's gonna go for. Oh, Oh, wow. So, Robert Pattinson's Batmobile in the Batman is a modified 1970 Plymouth Barracuda with a Ford Triton V10 engine added on.
So it is just a modified car. And, a lot of people's been pointing out, they're like, well, Bruce Wayne is rich. He's a playboy. Of course he'd have, like, all these cars around. Why wouldn't he just modify one? No, Bruce Wayne pretends to be a playboy who would spend all this stuff. He's more concerned about stopping villains and stuff. He's not just like, oh, well, you know what? It's Tuesday. I'll buy a few cars.
Yeah, let me paint it black. And come on, man. They took the quote from Christian Bale Batman when he said, is it going to be black? Make it all black, right? And they just ran with it. Yeah. Hey, take this car. It's 1970 Plymouth Barracuda. Make it all black. Batmobile.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me about it...
Last time that was done was the 1970s.
Sure.
Where they took an older car.
But the thing that bothers me about it is the Batmobile should never have doors. Like, if you look at most of the movies, that has the chamber that like slides out, or like a Lamborghini doors that like open up sideways or something. But when Batman has to open up, imagine this picture: Batman opening up a door, stepping out of the car, closing the door back, and then having to run to his villain. Right? And it's like, what? Then what happens? The cape gets shut in the door, and then he's gonna damn it, clicking the buzzer a few times to get in.
Maybe there will be a little bit of that going on, because if that is going on, then that'll make it seem a little bit more, actual. Like it's not as comic booky. I mean, nobody wants to see that, but then again, if it's supposed to be a serious movie, it might take away from it. But for just maybe a hint of realism, maybe that can happen. Maybe they wanted it to be, I don't know, man. I'm hoping for the best when it comes to this movie. I genuinely am.
So apparently it's going to be loosely based off of the Long Halloween, which is one of the few legendary Batman stories that I have not actually read. But from my understanding, it's taking place right after year 2. So Batman's been Batman for about 2 years at that point. So yeah, he probably doesn't have all the gadgets in the suit and stuff. So maybe like in the second movie or the third movie, it's like slightly upgraded. But again,
he realizes he's a millionaire.
I just can't get past that image of him opening up the door. And then like, did I hit the mirror against the wall when I opened it? Damn it. Got a scratch on it.
He pulls the mirror down, checks himself. Got a little booger there.
That's the thing that bothers me about it. I can't get past the regular doors on the Batmobile. It does kind of look like the Batmobile from the storyline where Jason Todd was introduced. But again, in the comic, you don't have to have that visual of him opening
the door. That's just, come on, man. That's not it. DC.
All right, I'll let you choose the next topic. I don't know where to run from this one.
Well, from a disappointment to something we're gonna leave up to y'all. Or something that we did leave up to y'all. So the Hulk versus King Kong, right? We put this poll up on the Bing, Zang, and Zoom Facebook page, the group site, and the difference seemed to be, and I asked this question to a few people in person. The difference seemed to be that a lot of the older people, they went with King Kong, whereas a lot of the younger people went with the Hulk. And so I don't know if that's just they have more information, like the younger people have more information about the Hulk, and the older people have more information about King Kong, like they just knew him better. Maybe that was it, but I'm going to give you my humble opinion. The Hulk, simply because you beat the Hulk up, he gets mad. He gets mad, he gets stronger. He gets bigger when he gets mad.
Hulk's strongest there is.
Yeah,
that's the motto, right?
But like when it comes to King Kong, don't get me wrong, he's big to begin with, but
he's just a monkey.
He's
just literally a gorilla.
He's a big gorilla.
I mean, and I still find it a little bit odd, and I know that you're right, that the demographic is that the older people, because I saw the numbers too.
Yeah.
But the original King Kong movie came out in 1933, so I was like, how old are these people? I know there was the 60s King Kong, which was great and arguably better than the original, but during the 60s and 70s is also when the Hulk came out too, and they the live action series with the sad piano music at the end of every episode.
Lou Ferrigno,
yeah. So I don't know like why that is. To me, it's definitely Hulk. I mean, obviously Hulk would win. Like I said, I like King Kong, but it's just a monkey. It's just a monkey. and I know that, and technically not canon to the King Kong series or whatever, but they did that King Kong versus Godzilla one, and King Kong for some reason was supposed to be the good guy, and Godzilla was the bad guy. I don't know why.
Godzilla just looks scarier.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, well, King Kong is powered up by electricity because that's how gorillas work. And still, I don't think he can beat the Hulk.
If you eat enough bananas, apparently you develop electricity power. So,
how many bananas would he have to eat, though? I mean,
that's true. Goodness, what do they feed him? What can you feed King Kong?
The other monsters on Skull Island,
right?
Like the dinosaurs and stuff.
Yeah,
he'd just knock them out. Actually,
knock them out and eat them.
Little known fact, chimpanzees, which I know King Kong's a gorilla, not a chimpanzee, but chimpanzees are better hunters statistically than lions. They catch more of their prey than lions do.
Percentage-wise?
Percentage-wise. I think if my memory was correct, that chimpanzees actually catch 66% of the prey that they hunt, when lions only catch 60%.
Oh, okay. Dang, chimpanzees, shout out. All right. Stop using chimpanzee to diss people. Call somebody chimpanzee to be like, thank you next time. Hey, appreciate it.
So you're saying I'm a successful hunter and that I'm smarter than your average animal.
Hey,
thanks.
I'll take it. Chimp life. All right, so
let's dip into sports a little bit since we talked comics for quite a bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Paulo Costa.
Woo.
So Paulo Costa is a amateur MMA fighter. Apparently has a pretty good record. Recently, Logan Paul. Old Logan Paul. We all know
Paulo Costa. He's pro. He's pro now.
He's pro now.
Oh yeah.
And Logan Paul is wanting to get into MMA.
Right, yeah.
They had a bit of a sparring match, and allegedly, Paulo Costa knocked out Logan Paul. If you watch the video, though, it looks kind of fake, and it's not like Logan Paul hasn't faked videos before.
Right.
But it's interesting to think about that if Logan Paul wants to get into MMA, that he's getting knocked out in training, and Paulo Costa, if you think about it, Logan Paul is a pro boxer that he knocked out a pro boxer with a punch.
So like, here's the thing. My take on that is, if it is fake, so be it. Like you said earlier, the publicity of it, it gets eyes on both of them really, and Paulo Costa is actually supposed to be the one that fought against Israel Adesanya most recently for the title, but because Paulo Costa got hurt, the fight went to
Somebody.
Goodness, what's his name right now? I'm just drawing a blank. I'm gonna be so upset. But anyway, the guy from Cuba, it went to him, and he unfortunately for him didn't end up winning the fight. But so Paulo Costa coming out and knocking out Logan Paul is a way to get himself back in the public eye.
Right.
After being injured. Yeah.
Weren't you recently at a UFC?
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of UFC, right? I was at UFC, a UFC event with.
Did you fight?
No, I did not fight. not this time. Not afterwards either. But it was Figueiredo versus Benavidez. Now, in a night full of pretty decent fights, You had some on the ground that some of the fans didn't really understand what was going on. They're like, stand him up, stand him up. I'm like, nah, this is beautiful. Y'all don't understand what's going on here? But the Figueiredo versus Benavidez was the main event. Should have definitely been the main event, like on any card. Those two went out and tried to take each other's heads off. Figueiredo took his time. He waited for his shots. But in the meantime, while he's waiting to pick his shots, Benavidez was tagging him up, and it was looking pretty grim for Figueiredo up until they headbutted, right? So they kind of
like literally
towards the end there, they just, it was unintentional, but they just kind of bumped heads into each other because they both moved in at the same time, and I guess Benavidez got the worst of it, so he took a second to collect himself. He stepped back, wiped his head because he started bleeding, and just that split second that it took from the step back, wipe his head, and he was out the game for just that split second. Figueiredo came with straight right, put him on his behind, came back in with a few other shots, and the referee called it, man. It was a knockout in beautiful fashion for Figueiredo, but Benavidez, I felt bad for him because he's been chasing this belt since the days of Mighty Mouse Johnson, and Mighty Mouse Johnson's not even in the UFC anymore. And, you know, he fights for one.
Here I come to save the day.
So, yeah, right, Mighty Mouse. But yeah, man. So that was a beautiful night of fights, though. It was my first UFC event. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that'll happen. You know, you take your eyes off your opponent for 2 seconds, literally, and
done.
It's an eternity in a fight. You know, but on the flip side of that, sometimes, you know, if you're starting to get frazzled and everything, taking a second to compose yourself can make all the difference too. So you don't know.
He didn't know it was coming.
Yeah, he didn't know it was coming, right? So if his opponent didn't attack right then and he took that couple seconds, he probably would have won because, you know, he gathered himself, he's ready to go and stuff. But since the opponent took that opportunity to drive through,
and I think what happened in that situation was that he walked towards his the side that he had back, so he walked towards his dominant side, and like that one split second, normally he would have been good because he had the distance, but the fact that he walked straight towards his dominant side, you could almost see the setup happening. If you watch it back in slow motion, you can see the setup from Figueiredo, and by the time Benavidez recognizes where he's going and what's coming at him, it's too late. Already rattled his brain, you know? Yeah, so he that's these things happen, man. All it takes is one miscalculation and bam, that's it. On the feet, it's real difficult.
On the fetus?
Oh, no, on the feet, it's real difficult. Not on the fetus. Don't go beating up.
So this is getting into a different subject I'm not sure we want to get into.
The F in UFC stands for fetus.
Fetus Fighting League. Oh, jeez.
Ultimate Fetus Championship. This is it.
It's like that episode of South Park with the crack baby fighting league.
What? No, I hadn't seen that.
Look it up.
I'll have to check that out.
It's a good one. Yeah. So you did a lot of professional wrestling.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and how long did you do that for? Like,
oh goodness,
a lot of years.
Well, professionally, it's only a few. Professionally was 3 years.
3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got an athletic background. Obviously, you're in good shape because you're a trainer and everything, and you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now.
That's correct.
Do you have any stand-up fighting background? I know you did Muay Thai for once or twice.
That was just a couple of times going to my brother's school. Not one that he owns, but one that he was working at. Stand-up, not besides just the stuff that I had to do to get by and survive. Nothing. Yeah, right. Hey, Harlem is an interesting place, man. It's much more laid back than it was when I was first there, when I was growing up there, you know. But there's always that element. It's New York City, you know. Sometimes you have to use what you got, and you live and you learn.
So, our viewers, if you've listened to several episodes before, they know my take on the UFC and MMA.
Yeah.
But if you ever got the opportunity, coming from with your background mainly being ground fighting, would you ever
Participate in UFC?
Or MMA, either way?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would like to have one fight at least under my belt before, that's bucket list. But at the same time, I'm also not pressed simply because, one, I don't want to go in blindly like, yeah, let's just go jump in. Like, I'm not the bar fight guy. I do want to go in and train and go and have a fight.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not something that defines me. I'm not defined by, all right, I need to have this one fight. It is what it is. It'll be, like I said, bucket list thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So I've saved this one because this one's going to take a while to dive into. This one's going to be a good one. So HBO.
Mm-hmm.
We've all heard of it. So
Speaking of fights, right?
Speaking of fights.
Pretty popular.
They're a monster at this point. They're a juggernaut, to use that word again, of entertainment. Mm-hmm. Apparently, recently, Sony, who is a company, Sony, they do a lot of things. They make electronics, they make movies, they make all these things. Mm-hmm. They own PlayStation. Well, PlayStation has set up its own division called PlayStation Studios, or I've also seen it PS Studios, so I don't know what's the official name. And they've made a deal with HBO that they're going to start making movies and TV shows for HBO. And the first project that they announced is The Last of Us, as in The Last of Us video game, to be a series on HBO. Originally, they were talking about doing a Last of Us movie, and that was in the talks for 5-6 years, and then it just kind of disappeared.
Fizzled out.
Yeah. So now they've officially announced that they're doing a Last of Us TV series on HBO.
Now, well, let's see. Last of Us, the video game.
Yes.
Right? Great game. Like 6 hours worth of, entertaining dialogue, action.
6 hours of just story. Then the game plays on top of it.
But it's really good though. I like the game. If you had the time to play it, it's not an instant gratification game. It's not something that you're gonna just turn on and be entertained within the first 2 seconds. But overall, the story and everything, I liked it. It's pretty good. One of their best-selling titles. How that's going to translate onto TV, I'll leave that part to you.
Well, I mean, HBO. Excuse me. HBO. Sorry, listeners at home. HBO.
Coronavirus
is an incredible company. And I've actually worked for HBO a few times. I had a small part on HBO's The Watchmen, and then I did some background work. You can see me walking by a few times on HBO's The Outsider, which is based on the Stephen King book. And I know I've talked to the executives at HBO before. They were on the set of The Watchmen all the time. They put so much attention to detail in these shows. And the budget's so much higher than a regular show. The amount of work, the high standards that they hold themselves up to is just amazing. So HBO is certainly not going to be the problem in this scenario. Yeah. PlayStation Studios, this would be their first outing, so we don't really know how they would do. But most Sony products are fine.
Pretty decent.
Nothing really to complain about. The question to me is what they're really going to do. Are they going to translate the game? Which is what most people think. If so, yeah, I think it'd be fine. I think it's a good enough story. I think it'd probably be better as a series than a movie, because trying to tell that story in 2 hours is probably not going to be great.
It's just going to feel rushed, and it's going to end up being a bad movie.
Right, because most of the story of the game, for those who don't know, The Last of Us is a post-apocalyptic zombie game, and it follows the characters of Joel, who is a older man who lost his daughter in the apocalypse, and Ellie, a early teens girl who lost her parents, and they have to travel together because they think Ellie might have the cure for the zombie disease. And most of the game is about their relationships. It's not really super high action.
Yeah.
It's not really, super about the zombies. It's about them and their relationship together.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a 2-hour, 90-minute movie, whatever, you really wouldn't get that connection as much as you would 60 minutes.
Yeah.
A week
Each,
for
right,
how many
yeah.
ever weeks.
It's a better way to tell the story.
Yeah, I think it's a better way to tell the story, for sure. What a lot of people are talking about is they're like, oh, well, I've already played the game. I don't need to see that story again. Let's do a prequel about Joel being, really aggressive after his daughter died. And it's like, those arguments to me of, oh, we've already seen that. I've already read that. I've already played that, are the stupidest things in the world. Because I see this with comic book movies all the time where people are like, oh, well, I've already read whatever comic, so why do I need to see it as a movie? Just do whatever you want with the movie. Think about if that was said with Harry Potter. Be like, oh, I've already read the books. Do a movie about Dumbledore killing, I don't know, like, do the actual story.
Use this as a moment to teach. We've had the same story be reiterated with different characters over the course of time. These are the things that interest us. All we do is we might take one person out. Let's take Batman out, replace him with Superman. Let's take Superman out, replace him with the X-Men. You have a similar story being told.
They say there's only actually 6 stories in existence, right, and that everything's just a different version of those 6 stories.
So, but they interest us. My thing is, people, if something interests you, if you're a fan of something, there's nothing wrong with being a fan of something. If you're a nerd for something, there's nothing wrong with being a nerd for something. That just makes life interesting. If you are not interested by something, if everything is just bland and they're doing this now, I know what they're doing this now, and that is something that's negative to you, well then please tell me what entertains you. Some people just are not they don't allow themselves to be entertained for some reason. I don't know what that might be.
I mean, and the thing is in my opinion is, if you haven't adapted something correct first, don't start reinventing it or doing spin-offs or whatever, right? So when it comes to The Last of Us, you say, oh, well, I've already played the games. So that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the story in a different format. Or
you should be excited.
What about people who older people who don't play video games but would still love that story when being presented with it? Yeah. It's like, if it's a story you love, if it's characters you love, why not want it to be put out to the most amount of people as possible?
Yeah, wouldn't you want that to spread?
Yeah. And then, if you want, you could do spin-offs and reinventions and whatever.
So I'd rather have it be a good show that everybody watches, that everybody, that people are rushing home to go see or setting their DVRs for and things like that. That brings back a feel. How many shows can you say are like that? Yeah. You can count on, I'd say 2 hands, maybe, it depends. But each, every decade, there's maybe 10 shows that are the go-to shows for that time frame. And so this could be one of them. You never know. Give it a chance.
In the business, we call that the water cooler show. The one that everybody stands around the water cooler talking about. And, I was lucky enough to work on one of the water cooler shows, which was Lost. And I think Lost kind of reinvented, that concept of, and the camera went off. Okay.
No, you're good.
I think Lost kind of reinvented that, keeping people coming back every week.
Yeah.
But the last water cooler show that we had was the Game of Thrones, and it's gone. And we thought, because there was some talks at HBO, that The Watchmen was going to be the next water cooler show. However, that didn't end up panning out the way we wanted it to. So maybe Last of Us would. And, and it's similar to The Walking Dead, which was on the verge, it was almost the water cooler show for a bit there, and then it kind of got a little bit more niche. Do you think this will get compared to The Walking Dead? Both being zombie shows?
Maybe, and then you're going to have... Because Walking Dead, I feel like it did actually reach that level of the water cooler. Like, maybe not for everybody in your circle, but for the people in mine, it did, only because you have people of all ages talking about it. Somebody who's 60 could talk about something with their grandkids. Like, hey, did you see The Walking Dead? Yeah, I saw The Walking Dead. Like, that is something that kind of bridges that gap.
Right.
Whereas, if that person's talking about an older show, then they might not get it. But as far as this being compared, yeah, it will probably be compared to The Walking Dead by some people. But those who know the show, who know the game,
yeah,
I don't think there's going to be that much of a comparison between the two.
What we really need is a water cooler show.
I think it will do well.
A water cooler show that's a sitcom, because we haven't had one of those since I Love Lucy.
Yeah,
remember, everybody watched I Love Lucy back in the day. But keeping with this for a little bit longer, we like we said, this is going to be PlayStation Studios' first outing, and it's a little bit unclear of what PlayStation has the rights to and what's just released on their on their system. There's some talks about maybe a Final Fantasy XIV show. I've heard rumbles of. What PlayStation franchise, and again, maybe they own the rights to it, maybe they just license it. But seemingly, what PlayStation franchise would you like to see made into a show or a movie? God of War, maybe. Or...
God of War would be. God of War might. I don't know about a series for God of War. I don't think God of War. I think God of War would probably be better off in the movie installments. That way, it's got a big aura around it. But
like the 300 or something.
Yeah. And I think that I don't see too many of those happening. I know that there's different stories, but maybe 1, 2, and then maybe that's it. Maybe they can combine a little bit from the God of War. But I don't know. That's a good question. I heard Uncharted was like they were gonna make a movie, and then they were kind of shifting that towards a show, or I think it was one of the two, that they were working on something involving like live action.
Right. They did that fan film, which was, it's funny because it's a fan film because it wasn't owned by the studio, but it was the people who made the games. It was the who did it. But they did a fan film starring Nathan Fillion. Yeah, that was pretty darn good. And yeah, there's talks of an Uncharted. I think it was a movie starring Tom Holland, who I just can't get behind that little guy who looks like about 12 years old playing Nathan Drake. That doesn't make any sense to me.
That one doesn't. That doesn't sit well. At least the other guy looks like him, like the character.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Hollywood magic, but still, Tom Holland. I don't know.
I love Tom Holland. Like, he's a great actor, and
to me, he is Spider-Man. But I know how you feel about that.
Yeah,
so
I like him as Spider-Man. I don't dislike him as Spider-Man. I just think there's some issues. But for me, what I'd really like to see, and again, I don't know copyrights, but I'd really like to see the Infamous games translated. Did you ever play those?
Yep.
Yeah, so for our audience who may not know what Infamous is, it's a series of video games with a few different lead characters. Right. But essentially what it is urban superheroes. So it's superhero people, but in not the traditional sense of like spandex and whatever. It's about people with normal clothes, normal people who get superpowers. Every man, every woman, getting superpowers and then becoming a superhero or supervillain, depending on how you play the game. Right. And they were talking about making a movie of that like 10 years ago after the first game came out. I think that was about right. I think about 10 years ago. But that kind of fizzled out. I think it'd be really cool to see Cole McGrath or Delson Rowe or Fetch or any of the other characters from the Infamous series, and kind of combining their story into one, so that way you could do a longer term season
well, this might be going back a little bit, but and it would definitely have to be a movie. I don't see it being a TV show, but L.A. Noire.
Yeah, that would be really good.
I like that one. I like that game, and I just remember being amazed by the graphics, and I was like, yeah, "This would be a perfect movie. Like, let's do the movie."
Yeah,
and
well, I mean, noir is a
like
film.
A movie.
It's a film genre, right?
Yeah. But let's see. Yeah, I think I don't know. I have to really sit back on that, but really quick before I forget. I had to get the name because I would have felt wrong because it's my guy and I just drew a blank. But going back really quick to the UFC fight, it was Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. Yoel. That's right.
That's the guy.
Yes. But yeah.
All right, I think that's
So,
all we got for
ladies
today.
and gentlemen, this has been another edition of the Bing Zang Zoom podcast. You're here with T.
And Matthew.
And we'll see you next time. Farewell.
Peace.